Ready.
Hello, everyone. A happy Sunday, and welcome to this edition of the Salt Lake Expositor. How are you doing, Randy and Jean? Good to see you.
Fan-freaking-tastic. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in Spokane, Washington. I don't know how things are in the Oakland area and in Texas, but right here, gorgeous day.
That's right. Everything's okay here, and it's great to be with you. And I'm wearing this.
Love it.
What is it? More than what?
More than one way to Mormon with the rainbow.
Isn't that the
Part of the-
Sunstone motto, Jean?
That is the Sunstone motto. And we might talk a little bit about Sunstone today, I bet.
Yeah,
I
that'd
think
be
we
great.
might.
I think it's going to tie into some of the things we're talking about today for sure. And it is hot here in San Antonio, Texas. It is over 100 degrees. We got a brief respite yesterday with a little bit of rain in the morning, which was lovely. But even with the rain, I went out and did my super long walk yesterday, and it was about 85 degrees with the humidity matching the temperature, 85% humidity.
And I'll say I saw Megan cleaning her boots off, we'll say, afterwards.
Be jealous,
Very
Megan.
muddy out there. Yeah, I'm very jealous. Yes, I wish I were there. You don't need to rub it in.
Although we won't talk about wintertime. that's nothing to brag about here.
Well, when it's wintertime, I'll make sure to rub it in your face as well.
Hi, Mimi of 8 and Cat Lady.
So, Megan, you have some top news stories that just came in over the wire this morning.
That's right. We have a couple of top news stories to talk about, and then we have a brand new podcast that we're going to talk about, which is what our thumbnail is all about. I'm really excited to talk about that. So let's get going. Do you want to present the first one, or how do you want to work it?
Let's do the first one. I'll add it to the stage, and when that pops in, I'll try to go to this other side and do full screen, but I can't see full screen on the church's website. So it's just going to have to be the way it is. So can you see it now?
No, I think I have to add it to the stage.
I thought I did.
Oh, I've got to remove this one first, and then okay. We will be putting the call-in number up a little bit later. We want to hear your comments and your questions. We just ask people to be brief and to the point. But yeah, so this first story here is that this morning it was reported that the mission president for the Mexico City West mission was shot after someone broke into the mission home, is what they call it, where his family lived. And he is in good condition. He's recovering over there. And that's pretty much all I know about it. I didn't even read the entire article. So that's all I knew, is that it was just a break-in attempt. And the church is pretty tight-lipped about
at 2 a.m.
Got it. The church's statement is pretty tight-lipped about the circumstances and everything else. It just says that his wife was not injured, that they're being supported by that area presidency, and the missionaries are all fine and safe. The church is cooperating with local authorities. You know, this is a pretty standard kind of a response, this type of incident from the church.
You'd almost expect at the bottom it says, "Our prayers are with President and Sister Willis, so he will not be needing medical attention."
Yeah, the prophet could fly in and maybe heal him right quick, so that's not necessary.
So we could be done with that, right? Unless there is anything else.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, obviously, we're not reporting on this because we have any ill will towards anybody. Obviously, it's a scary situation, and I'm glad that he's okay and that his wife wasn't hurt.
Yeah, thank heavens for that. Hey, I love Cat Lady, but is there a way we can take that comment off? Because I don't seem to be able to pull that off. There we go. Now I can see the screen fully.
That's right. We're figuring out.
So
technical.
Mission presidents, I kind of thought were under special protection, and it was always super hard for me to hear of any missionaries being injured in the field. And certainly we've had some missionaries unfortunately die on their missions, and that was always really disillusioning to me, because I thought missionaries and mission presidents and people who were serving for the church were, under some kind of protective covering, and that's obviously not the case.
Maybe not wearing their garments.
Yeah, that's
Well, I
that's
mean,
what
you
we
do
would say.
wonder about that. You would think that maybe the good Lord would put a little extra protection over people like mission presidents and missionaries. We almost lost a missionary in my mission. He was in a coma for several days, and then we would take turns going and bathing him and caring for him as he slowly healed from a brain aneurysm. And it was so, I shouldn't say funny. I can kind of laugh at it now, but because of the aneurysm, it affected his brain, and he would cuss like you wouldn't believe. He would walk in and say, "Hey, you MFers, how the F are you doing today?" And we're like, "Well, we're doing good." And, we'd get him in the tub and bathe him and care for him, but he barely pulled through.
Yeah, there's
Well, I'm glad
Well,
he ended up okay.
yeah. Did you have another breaking story, Megan?
I do actually. The second story I want to talk about actually comes from the Salt Lake Tribune, and this is a story following up on the LDS tax evasion scandal. For those who don't know, a couple of years ago, the LDS Church was fined $5 million by the IRS because they had created these illegal shell companies and had improperly reported the amount of money that each of those shell companies was holding and protecting. Well, now this is a little bit of a follow-up. The Widow's Mite report cites that there's strong evidence, and just came out this morning, that the faith underreported hundreds of millions of dollars in taxable income. Obviously, the church disputes the allegation, but they may owe the IRS $90 million, which of course is a drop in the bucket. It's not going to make a dent, but I want to show the website for the Widow's Mite report. This is a group of researchers and analysts, both inside and outside the church, who have real data, and they report on the church's finances as well as the membership, the property holdings, the temples, the investments, everything that the church is not transparent with its members. And so they go through and they detail all of the different financials and data that are the real data and not what the church reports. So if you want to see that 60 Minutes episode that came out in 2023 after the church was fined, it's here on the Widow's Mite. So it's thewidowsmite.org. So I highly recommend people go over there and find out the real numbers of everything that's going on. So basically, according to the Widow's Mite report, they're saying that they believe that the church owes about $90 million in taxes because Ensign Peak Advisors failed to report $450 million in taxable business income. So it happened between allegedly 2003 and 2017 when they were using those shell companies to hold stocks. So again, the $5 million fine they had to pay is minuscule compared to their wealth, and they can pay it without missing a beat. So they don't really care about correcting their practices when the cost is so low for them to do it. So the Watchdog's website, it says they did a year-long study, and it also reveals a complex strategy of investing by Ensign Peak that the group says deferred tax obligations by putting millions into what are called publicly traded partnerships, or PTPs, over the year. So,
And I'll just say a $5 million fine is about a $5 fine to you and I if we were making like $30,000 a year or something like that.
right.
You know, I read a report yesterday, or I heard a report, and it was an attorney reporting on the church finances. And I wish I could tell you, because I know that this is without receipts, but I wish I could tell you what I was listening to. But I listened to so many podcasts yesterday. But it said that the Catholic Church was one of the wealthiest churches in the world with $15 billion. But compared to the Mormon Church at $260 billion, the Catholics
Conservatively.
come in second.
Yes. Yes.
So
And even the British royal family doesn't have as much money as the LDS Church.
right. Yeah. So you just as a comparison, you'd think the Catholics would be the richest in the world, but no, the Mormons outdo them by several times.
And I'm willing to bet the Catholic Church, they're talking about like negotiable instruments, right? Like legal tender or property or money or whatever. But probably in the Vatican, they might have $3 trillion worth of ancient relics and, treasures and, the Ark of the Covenant. That's got to be worth something.
Yeah, but you can't touch it because it'll fry you.
That's right. It'll melt your eyeballs. So I just want to point out that the church spokesperson, Chris Moore, said in a statement to the Tribune, he says, these accusations are, quote, wrong and the result of incomplete information and speculative analysis. He goes on to say Ensign Peak's tax returns are prepared by world-class independent accountants. I'm going to push back on the independent there because undoubtedly they're Mormons. And they have carefully designed procedures to provide them with access to all relevant information. The church and its affiliates, including Ensign Peak, believe in obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. Well, they say that, but how accurate do you think that is, guys?
It definitely is wrong. It could be twice as much that they owe in taxes if they followed the law, right? That would still make it wrong.
Right. It's based on incomplete information because they definitely owe way more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was looking at the thread that Jasmine Rapoli, when she posted something about how people who report to the bishop are better off than if you call the cops on child SA or other SA circumstances.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some of that as well. But one of the things that's personally important to me is that when we talk about these news stories that are harmful, that we talk about the underlying policies and practices in the church that have created this system. So I guess I will just, for a little bit, let's just play this little game as far as, was Joseph Smith transparent about all of his dealings in the Bake of Nauvoo?
No.
Okay.
Is this a quiz? So Randy and I are
this is a quiz. That right? Was Joseph Smith honest and transparent about the way that he instituted the law of polygamy?
No.
Was Joseph Smith honest and transparent about the fact that he had affairs with several young women before he received a revelation about polygamy?
No.
Not just no, but hell no.
Except for maybe bragging with his friends at the bar, right?
Right.
Saloon.
So does Joseph Smith have a history throughout his time informing the church of doing illegal things?
Yes.
That's right. And I'll add one more. Did Emma Smith know from Joseph that she was number 21 or 22 of his sealings?
Sealed wives. No, he did not. She did not.
She did not. And
he didn't tell, and she didn't know. Yeah, so this is a church that is founded on breaking the law and hiding it and not talking about it. So are we surprised that now there's a practice among the church leadership to hide their finances and to not be transparent with the membership about it?
That's right.
They're just keeping carrying on with the traditions.
For the members,
Exactly.
obedience is the number one principle, and for the leaders, it's lying for the Lord is the number one principle.
Right. And so there's this idea that because they believe that they are God's one true church, and because they believe that they are the only ones with the true gospel, I think that there is a hubris among the leadership where they believe that they don't, and you even heard it when they were talking about the fine that they received. They didn't feel like they needed to disclose the information about how much money was in that fund, and so they just didn't.
The
Can't
church even
touch
had
this.
go ahead. The church even had a leader called Hubris B. Brown. Maybe Hugh might have been short for his.
Yeah, Hugh was short for hubris. Go ahead, Randy.
No, I just said can't touch this. I'm just doing my
MC Hammer.
rapping for the day. Yeah.
Rapping for the Lord.
Ding,
Yeah,
ding,
when
ding,
you
ding.
believe that you are the, God's one true church, then that makes everything that you do for the greater good. It means that, even if you have to lie a little, cheat a little, steal a little, underreport your taxes a little, you're doing it because then there's going to be more for the Lord later. I guess that's how they justify it.
All the temples are
Do it
Jesus.
in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end.
Yep.
All the temples are Jesus's summer homes, and he needs a lot of them. He's going to do a lot of vacaying. He's going to be here for 1,000 years. He's going to need, different places to stay to keep it real.
Yeah, it's just infuriating to me because, we've talked ad nauseum about this, but I just think that it's so important to point out that if the church wanted to alleviate suffering, even among its own members, it could do so. And if they really do believe that God is omniscient and omnipresent, meaning he's all powerful, he's all knowing, he's everywhere, then why does he need a trust fund? Why does he need money at all if he could just control everything? When Jesus comes again, what is the church going to need money for? Jesus can just create a temple if he wants to.
And if he's everywhere, if he's everywhere, there's a phone nearby him. He can call in and tell you, Megan.
That's right. I encourage him to do so.
Megan, I know that you did extensive coverage on the Texas flooding, that horrific loss of life. And I know that there were several organizations that answered the call and was there. Could you tell me, in your research, how much did the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints help out all of those families and the tragedies that happened?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I stopped looking after the first week because a lot of times I will say that the Mormons have done a really good job of showing up at disaster sites with truckloads full of supplies and things like that, especially Hurricane Katrina. They had semi-tractors full of supplies that were parked outside the area the day before the hurricane hit because they wanted to be sure to be right there as soon as the danger was over. That was not the case in Texas. They did not do that. And after the first week, the only report that I saw, which came from the church newsroom, basically reported that the ward members in the Kerrville and Comfort area were supporting each other and helping each other. There was no indication that members had assembled to go out into the community and do work and help. There was no reporting at that time of the church giving money or supplies or anything else to the Texas flood victims. So I don't know. It's possible that they have given something or done something since then. But what I found troubling is that, Randy tried to help me to contact the local leaders in the area because I really wanted to partner with the Mormon church and see what they were doing. Because as I said, a lot of times they are first on the scene. They've got things organized. They've got volunteers with the helping hands shirts on going out there. And I wanted to just attach myself to their efforts and help them all I could. But we couldn't even get the person, the Relief Society president or the PR person, whomever it was, to call us back. And I eventually stopped trying to get in touch with her. So yeah, Joe Schmo did go down to the Kerrville ward. Very kind and generous people who showed up in Hunt immediately. Heard nothing from the church though. So yeah, they showed up in Hunt immediately to help the members in Hunt. And there was a woman in their ward who lost her life, unfortunately, one of the older members. And of course, there was an expression of, grief and condolences about that loss. But all I saw from the church newsroom was that members were helping each other.
I think that with, their little fund that they've set aside of $265 billion, that they might have been able to show up a little more for everybody, not just the members, but everybody, in the name of not even to publicize their goodness, just to do something like Christ might have them do.
Yeah.
Extend a hand.
Yeah, so just to go and look at a little bit of a report, the last thing that I see the church reporting on was July 29th. And it says, I'll go ahead and share this so we can see it. Service highlights Central Texas flooding response. This is from the church's own website here, or their own newsroom. Basically, they give a detailed account of what first responders did. They give a detailed account of generally, who was affected. This is the lady, Sally Graves was the one who passed away, died in the flooding. They talk about her funeral service. And then this is basically what they said they did. Humility, hard work, and harmony with local partners positions the church as a trusted, helpful presence for the months of healing and rebuilding ahead. They're collaborating with the American Red Cross, as they often do, to help those in need in Central Texas. And as you can see, this picture right here, Red Cross, Red Cross, Red Cross, Red Cross, Red Cross. Is that guy the Mormon that's helping the Red Cross back there? Because I don't see.
Or the photographer, maybe.
Or maybe the photographer. I don't see any of those helping hands shirts anywhere. So it says the church's support has helped pay for temporary housing for displaced homeowners. Probably just the Mormon ones, though, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Although they did say that they would pray for comfort for the victims.
Right.
In my research,
families.
That's what I found that they would do, is pray for the comfort of the victims and their families. Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's a member here who's quoted, Louis Depe, who's this Latter-day Saint volunteer. He says, it's a church of action. It's a church of not just talk about it, let's go help. That's my kind of motivator, to try to be a help to others. I would say there's a lot more people that are instrumental in heroic work than me. I'm just a tiny piece of the puzzle. It's about my friend's daughter. So again, this is the same news report that I read right after the flooding was over, is that his friend's daughter was missing. And so he and some other members went to go help his friend. So it's about their friends and their neighbors, but are they assembling and going out into the community to help everyone? I just don't see that. I didn't see any report of that.
Well, it's good we've set aside all that money, for a rainy day, because I guess this doesn't qualify as the rainy day that they allude to.
And I don't like how the church co-opts other people's service as their own. This right here, this is not a Mormon volunteer offering free food. I passed by many, many locations as I was down there, boots on the ground. Many people were giving away free food to the volunteers and people helping with the cleanup efforts. But this is not in front of a Mormon church. This is not the Mormon church in Kerrville. They took a picture of this and said, free food is offered to volunteers. It's not the Mormons offering it, but they're reporting on it. It's on their website. So they're, somebody not knowing better could say, oh, that's what the church is doing. They offered free food to the volunteer. That's not the church offering that. This is not the church that put up this sign right here that says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. Do you know how I know that it's not the Mormon church that put up that sign? Because it's not the language from the King James version of the Bible, which is what the Mormons would have put up. They didn't put that sign up, but they took a picture of it and put it on their website. So I just think this is really deceptive.
Yes, it is. Anything to make them look good. And I know we're going to actually get into that with our main topic today about the church looking good instead of
Yeah.
helping victims.
Right.
Uchtdorf has quoted other translations in his last few talks, though. So there's
Oh, has he? That's good
There's
to hear.
some expansion going on there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have said before, oh, we're saving that for a rainy day. Not this one, though, apparently. That you nailed it, Randy. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Right.
Some other
Yeah, I'm a
type of
little
race.
disgusted at that.
Yeah. So I guess, this kind of brings me back again to thinking about systemically, how did we get here that the church is willing to, do this sort of thing where there's a disaster that happens, but they only help each other. Well, it's kind of reminiscent to me of some of the other things that I've heard where, the Avow website, A Voice of Warning, which is a doomsday prepper website run by Christopher Perrett, who's a member of the church. And when they talk about their prepping, they talk about that there are going to be tent cities that everybody's going to gather to. Basically, what they said was that we have our supplies, but we're not going to share with other people. We're going to make sure that we take care of our community, and we're not gathering together all of this food storage to feed anybody but us, basically. And
I have a question,
McSpunky,
Megan.
thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to call attention to this. I thank you, McSpunky, for donating. The church I was working with was the Seven Oaks Baptist Church. Why? Because I could never get in touch with the Mormons. Like, we tried to call them, we kept missing each other, and eventually I gave up trying to get in touch with them.
When I was growing up, there was always the Bishop's Warehouse in our area. I think they'd call it the Bishop's Warehouse or the Bishop's Storehouse.
Right.
And that's where the members who were on welfare could go work in exchange for food. And they had tons of food set aside. Was that available to anyone in the community? Or was it just the members who were worthy after a bishop's interview?
Right. The Bishop's Storehouse. Yep. It's not as though you can just show up at the Bishop's Storehouse if your family is in need and just say, my kids need food. You have to go to a bishop or a Relief Society president who has to fill out an order form for you. And you don't get to fill it out. You tell them what you need. And so it's kind of a shaming experience, because where you could say, I think we need 2 loaves of bread this week, they could come back and say, well, do you really need 2 loaves, or do you think you could get by with 1?
Right. When I was on my mission, we had very little money, and it was very difficult sometimes to buy adequate food. There was a Catholic organization that had a soup kitchen that if you go and you give a quarter, what's equivalent to a quarter, you could get a soup and some bread and something to drink. And so that's where we would eat our lunch, and anybody who needed food could come. You didn't have to get permission from anybody. If you showed up, they were serving you. And there were so many people in need that showed up. And I can honestly tell you, we were in need. And I just can't imagine the church reaching out to the community like that and saying, all come. You all come. You don't need to have a bishop's interview. You don't need to be temple worthy to come eat some food. I don't think Jesus Christ, when he was feeding the 3,000, I don't think he interviewed each one to see if they were worthy to have any of that fish or bread. I think that he was feeding those who needed food.
He was feeding everybody. And that's the other thing I want to point out, is that when Jesus fed everybody with the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he didn't create that miracle and then say, oh, you know what? My disciples and I, we're frequently traveling and on the road. And so we're going to need to keep this for ourselves. And the rest of you, I'm sure, will be able to find food in your homes later today. He's like, no, I'm here preaching to the people. You're all in need of food. Let's give it to everyone, everybody who's here. Again, like you're saying, Randy, he didn't do a worthiness interview. He didn't ask them if they were followers of him or if they were just trolls in the audience. He gave to every single person who was there. So
Right?
if you ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Jesus would not create illegal shell companies and then hoard his wealth when there are people suffering, even people in their own church who are suffering. Even if they would only take care of Mormons and nobody else, even if they'd only take care of worthy Mormons, they have more than enough money to provide sustainable housing for all of their own people and to provide food for all of the children who are starving, and to stop telling people that if you have a choice between buying food and paying tithing, you should pay your tithing.
Right. It wasn't until I was on my mission that I learned accidentally that all the tithing that I had paid in my life up until then didn't go to the poor. For some reason, I always thought I'm paying tithing to help those in need. No, my little measly amount of tithing went to invest into the investment fund for that special rainy day. Even in my later life, I'm disgusted thinking about the amount of tithing I paid. When I did finally leave the church, I continued to pay tithing. I did it to those who were on the corner needing money for their, whatever they needed it for. I didn't decide if they were going to use it for alcohol or drugs or anything. I could tell that they were in need, and I gave it. And I felt so much better knowing that at least I was able to give it to someone directly and not investing in the church funds.
Yeah. There's a brilliant video that's about 9 minutes long about tithing, and maybe we'll play it later if we have time, but it just is all of the LDS prophets and apostles over the years talking about tithing and all the harmful things that they've said about tithing. Anyway, just want to throw that out there.
Well,
we can watch it later. We have other stuff to talk about too.
Yeah, we're about a half hour in. You want me to share the website of the
Yes.
guests of honor?
Yes, absolutely. So
And
the title.
and before
sorry,
you
go ahead,
do,
Randy.
before we get into this,
Okay.
our banner has all of us in our secret superhero outfits, and I know that. Well, I just want to tell you that I truly am a superhero. I stubbed my toe today, and see how calm I am. But while we were speaking, I reached down and felt that I split my toenail all the way down the center, and it's
Ouch.
accidentally caught it on something that my feet are resting on. And do you see me wavering? This is superhero material.
Absolutely.
My
That is,
toenail
you are.
is completely split, and I'm calm, cool, and collected, trying not to freak out.
I'm doing a slow clap in your honor, Randy.
Right. And I'll
Thank
add
you.
to that. I haven't had a cookie in a half an hour and I'm still here.
We truly are
also-
superheroes.
I want you to know also that I have some fresh chips and queso sitting off to the side over here, and I haven't eaten a single one. So that is
See?
true superhero restraint.
If
There you go.
anyone doubts it, you've heard it right here. We are truly superheroes.
That's right. In our own minds, legends in our own minds.
That's right. And,
Well, and you know what?
if a book or a podcast tells you how good they are, you know that book or podcast is speaking the truth.
Joking aside, we all three had a meeting, and we decided that all the podcasts, well, the majority of all these post-Mormon podcasts talk about news stories and what has happened and what's going on. But we decided to kind of steer our goals to, yes, letting you know what's going on, and then maybe talking about what can be done to fix it. What can be done by us, by you listening? What can be done to make this ridiculousness stop? And I think that's what we're about to get into now.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll go ahead back here and share the screen that Jean put up earlier. There's a new podcast out called The Architecture of Abuse, and I believe that it is absolutely the most important podcast. It's the most important information that I have ever seen come out, period. That's it, because it has to do with protecting children. The Architecture of Abuse basically it's a podcast that is produced by Lindsay Hansen Park, who also runs the Sunstone Conference. She is an incredible historian and writer, author, who has put together this amazing podcast. She's the co-executive producer. And the podcast features Alyssa Grenfell, who is arguably the most prominent ex-Mormon content creator in the space right now. She's done a lot to educate people about Mormonism. And she teams up with Tim Kosnoff, who is an attorney who's been practicing for over 40 years, handling SA cases for the Mormon Church and for the Catholic Church and the Boy Scouts of America and other things. He's spent his entire legal career fighting against SA of children. And so this podcast talks about the fact that just what we were saying is that when the Mormon Church is founded by somebody who is a predator, you're going to have built in to its architecture all of these different problems that, in my opinion, really cannot be solved. There is no way, in my opinion, and you guys may feel differently, and I'm interested to hear your comments. In my opinion, there is no way that the Mormon Church can reform, because everything that they do is fruit of the poisonous tree of Joseph Smith's narcissism, his predatory behaviors, and the secrecy and shame which founded the church and built the church, and the financial fraud that we see going on from the church, and the continued abuse of children that we see going on. Those are the real fruits of Mormonism. That's what you get when you have a church that's founded on secrecy and shame, and where they literally do not prioritize protecting children the way that they should. This podcast is only 7 episodes long. There are a couple of extra episodes of deep dives, but it's incredibly eye-opening. And it's also disturbing to realize the extent to which the church has purposely withheld information from its members and has purposely not put in place protections that it could have done to protect children.
And I'll also say it's a crime or a shame that Ladder Daily Digest has more subscribers than this channel. And I put a link to the channel so everyone open up a tab and peruse all the material that they have. And I think that once people start viewing these and sharing these and subscribing, that it can get the traction that it really needs to get the word out.
Yeah, so I know that this podcast is available on lots of other platforms than just YouTube, but if everybody here would please take a moment to go over there, subscribe to the podcast, please listen to the episodes and share the episodes. It is uncomfortable content, but it is life-changing content. It will, at the very least, open your eyes to the rampant problem of SA in the Mormon Church. And one of the things, and maybe we can just go around and share for each of us some of the most impactful moments of the podcast. For me, I've listened to it twice through now. I needed to do that because some of the things didn't quite absorb into my survivor brain. Sometimes when I hear things that remind me of the abuse that I went through as a child, it's harder for me to absorb it because it fights against the programming I received as a child. So even though I have healed largely from that abuse, I still have some cognitive dissonance when I hear things that combat the programming that was instilled in me as a child. So I've listened to it twice now. And I think one of the things that really hit me hard was listening to the episode about the Boy Scouts of America. And Tim Kosanoff points out that he's done a lot of research on this, and he knows that pedophilia was a problem with the Boy Scouts of America since its inception in 1913. They already knew that they had a problem with predators seeking out Boy Scout troops to be a part of. They knew that when they founded it. And the Boy Scouts of America is so entrenched with the Mormon Church that you can't really have one without the other. And knowing that, and also hearing Tim Kosanoff talk about the fact that predators communicate with each other about the spaces where they can find protection, where the laws are a little more relaxed, and where they know that if they get caught, they're not going to face serious consequences. That was just sickening to me, because the Mormon Church is one of those places that is safer for predators than it is for children. That blew my mind.
If you build it, they will come, I think
Exactly.
was the quote that they made, that once these predators find out that really, you're right, the LDS organization is a safe haven for these predators, they will come. And they do.
Yeah. Gene, you're muted.
Well, one of the stories was about Frank Curtis in Portland, who for 60 years was a predator, and he would always get forgiven. He would sometimes get excommunicated and sometimes get rebaptized, sometimes disfellowshipped, and he would move around. He was so good, even in his later years, he still would move into areas, befriend the ward members, have meals with them. Some board members even offered room and board for him, and he remained a predator. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens. And I believe that person is the same person. A friend of mine from my ward said that on a scout trip once, his brother was abused, and his brother couldn't talk about it for like 25 years. It just wasn't.
Oh man.
He just wasn't able to talk about it, but was deeply affected by it.
Yeah. One of the other really eye-opening things that Tim Kosanoff pointed out is that the average age of reporting SA for men is 52 for abuse that happened in childhood.
Because in a way, it's extra shame for people that think it's unnatural, right? To have a male on male situation when you're young and you're not ready for it. You don't know what's going on, compared to, heterosexual situation, and so it's not. It's just that's the tension that is built into our civilization right now.
Right. And as a survivor myself, I can say that, I talked to trusted people about what I went through, but not until well into my 30s. And I still haven't disclosed all of the abuse that I have been through, mainly because I am never going to see justice for that. But I did not report it to the police until I was 45 years old. And right now, in many states, they have a statute of limitations on these reporting. And in Utah, the statute of limitations is at 21, which means that if you were abused as a child, you have until you're 21 years old to get to the point where you feel comfortable, disclosing the abuse. And if you don't, then sorry, statute of limitations is up. Now, the good thing is that as far as criminal reporting goes, that's the statute of limitations. However, Tim Kosanoff has done a great job of being able to get civil compensation and file civil suits against the church and other groups and people to get victims some manner of justice. And that is better than nothing, but it still is ridiculous to me that, they have therapists and other experts reporting on this particular podcast that people just are not at a level of mental and emotional maturity by the time they're 21 to be able to report on that kind of abuse that happened in childhood.
And
I would imagine, and
okay.
I'm thankful to say that I haven't endured that personally, but I can imagine how traumatic it would be. And maybe sometimes you don't realize what was happening to you was abuse.
Right.
The predators make it seem like it's something that you're supposed to be doing. It's okay. And like you said, Megan, it may not even, you're not ready to report it by the time you're 21. You're just coming out of your teenage years.
Our
Right.
religious systems are built into acquiesce to adults, right? And we talk about everybody in the ward as brother and sister. They're part of our family, and do what the leaders say, do what an adult says, go find an adult, all these things are built in. One of the things that stuck out to me was that they talk about the difference between the Catholic priest abuse situation, that they had a list of the abusers somewhere. Once they found that list, everything else melted as far as barriers to getting the lawsuit, getting things to change. Same thing with the Boy Scouts. There's a list. You know what? Somewhere in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there are lists.
Yes.
If there's somebody who has access to that works for the church, if that ever gets beneficially released to the public, that will protect a lot of people.
Yeah. And why don't they release the list? Well, it's because they still believe that these predators can repent and stop what they're doing. But the repentance process does not fundamentally change the way that they think and feel. So the repentance process is not going to change the fact that they're going to continue to abuse. In fact, it almost guarantees that they will, because you're not holding them accountable by exposing the fact that they are predators. And that's one of the things Alyssa says in the podcast, is that it just blows her mind that all of us can, by the way, we can all go online to the database of people who have been convicted of sex crimes, and we can look on a map and we can find the people that live in our neighborhood that have been convicted and have to report as predators. We can do that at any point for anybody in our neighborhood, but we can't do the same thing for the people who are in our congregations, the people that we're sitting next to in church, the people that are teaching our primary children. We don't have a resource like that because the church gatekeeps it. And Tim Kosnoff has seen it in some of the disclosures that they have, the legal disclosures, but they always ask for that information back. So while Tim Kosnoff has made notes and he has been able to keep some records of some of those things, the church asks for all those records back, and they will not publish them or make them public.
That's infuriating. We trust our little precious kids as we watch them walk into their primary room. And from then on, it's all about trust that our kids are being well taken care of. And as
That's
disgusting as it is, when someone has to take them to the restroom or something, we don't know because there's no list and the church doesn't run any background checks. And it's like, hey, as long as you're baptized, your sins are washed away. So whatever happened in the past, you're good. You're okay now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No public lists.
There are two positive things that the church has done in the last little while to try and make things a little bit better. One of them is ending the bishop's interviews between a child and a bishop in a closed room. They invite the parents now to attend those interviews. However, in order for that to happen, Sam Young, who was advocating for that, had to get excommunicated. He was asking the church to change their policy so that children would not be left alone in the room with a bishop, and he got excommunicated for it. And then guess what? A few years later, they instituted the new policy where parents are allowed to come into those interviews. Personally, I think they should end worthiness interviews entirely, but they're not going to do that because they want to gatekeep things and they want to be in control of who's allowed to do what. And they want their members reporting to the quote church authorities, and instead of just allowing people to be on the honor system, because it's not like people lie in their temple recommend interviews now, right, guys?
I learned how to lie from my temple worthiness interviews.
Yeah. So again, if we're going to talk about, if you want to know where somebody's priorities are, look at where they spend their money and look at how they perform in litigation. So if you want to know where the church's priorities are, they spend more money on litigation than they do on almost anything else. And they sue people left and right, but they don't do things to protect children. They have enough money that they could afford to do background checks on every single person who is involved with children in every single ward across the world. They could also afford to hire a mental health consultant so that when children do report these things, somebody calls the police instead of calling the attorneys.
Amen to that. Because as we've learned from, and this is something that hit me so hard, there is a hotline that the church offers to bishops and leaders so that when they find out that there's a predator, they call the hotline, not to help the victims, not to recondition or to jail the predators. The hotline is simply to protect the church. So the attorneys can tell them, don't call the police. Let's keep this between us. We don't want this getting out to the press.
Right. As we've said many times before, that helpline, quote unquote, is not staffed by social workers or by psychologists. It's staffed by attorney intake specialists who ask questions like, has this person offended before? Did the abuse happen on church property? What is this individual's calling? Those are not the questions you ask when a child has been harmed. The first thing that you do is you ask if the child is safe, if they still have proximity to this person, if they're still in danger of being hurt again. Those are the kinds of things you ask when abuse gets reported. It needs to 100% go to the police.
That's right. Are there services available, right?
Right, exactly. Do we have parents who are supportive? Are parents going to take the child to therapy? If not, here, let's provide some therapy for this child. So the question, that I want to help answer is, what should we do, or what can we do? And I just want to say, if you are a member, an active attending member, whether you believe or not, if you're an active attending member, please plead with your bishop and your stake president in writing to call the police before they call the helpline. Another thing that you can do is you can write to your representatives to ask for that statute of limitations to be removed in your state. One of the things that they say in the podcast is that legislators consider it to be a huge 5-alarm fire if they get 5 phone calls in one day about the same issue. So get together with 5 people who are constituents in the same area, and all 5 of you call your legislators on the same day. Don't write an email. Don't send a written letter. Call your legislators and ask for the statute of limitations to be removed, or for a look back window to be made in abuse cases, so that children have the opportunity to get justice, even if they're not ready to come forward at the age of 21.
And another point made in this incredible series is that if you just have a hunch that there's something smelling a little rotten, that maybe something doesn't seem quite right about an individual, 95% of the time you're going to be right. Don't hesitate to call the authorities. I don't mean of the church, I mean the police. Inform someone, let them know, hey, I'm not feeling right about this, and they'll do something about it. Unlike the church, who will say, well, just sweep that under the rug. Keep that to yourself. Let's not spread any gossip. 95% of the people that get that feeling are correct that, yeah, there's something wrong in a predatory fashion with someone.
Yeah. So I'm pleased to be able to say that here in Texas, the statute of limitations has been abolished for most SA offenses against minors, but for a criminal case anyway. For victims who are 18 or older, the statute of limitations is 10 years from the date of the offense. But then in civil cases, for under 18, it's 30 years, and for over 18, it's 5 years. So it's really important for you to know what that is in your particular state, and to call your legislators to get it changed, because I'm just aghast that it's 21 in Utah. Gene, you're muted.
Gene, you're muted.
I have queued up the 2-minute introduction to it.
Oh, yes.
Play it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. View tab. Make sure we can.
Do you ever get this question that just is this itch in your mind and you can never quite scratch it?
Children are a sacred gift from a loving Heavenly Father.
And it was just, I couldn't shake it. And the question was, why? Why does this go on?
I'm kind of shocked by how little this is kind of in the collective knowledge of members or ex-members.
Knowledge of the great plan of happiness also gives Latter-day Saints a distinctive attitude toward the bearing and nurturing of children.
And the argument was the father's First Amendment right to believe what he wants to believe versus what's best for the child. And the Massachusetts Supreme Court said what's best for the child is more important than the father's rights.
So this is not particularly a Mormon issue or a Catholic issue or a Jewish issue. It is happening even in secular homes, and it is the biggest secret that we keep keeping, and it's the biggest thing that we keep not talking about it as a whole system.
It's still really perplexing that the severity of the harm, the cost, as you say, is so great. How could it even be tolerated?
This should be nonpartisan. It should be everybody rowing in the same direction. But I found out early on it's not.
So many people won't get this far. They won't listen to it because it makes them feel bad. It should make you feel bad. Child abuse should make you feel bad. This is a huge plague in our community, and it's a plague that we created, and it's nobody's job to fix it but us.
We got to talk about hard things, people, because we could do so much better.
But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea.
It's probably such a complex answer that I'll never really be able to understand it, or maybe it's an unanswerable question why the church treats these cases the way it does, when it could turn on a dime.
We're raising an alarm that we need to keep ringing and ringing and ringing until we don't need to ring the bell anymore. This is architecture of abuse.
Thank you, Jean, for sharing that. There was somebody who was pointing out, Thundersnow was pointing out that in Utah, they just lowered the age of consent. And this is so troubling to me. This needs to go away as well. Children cannot consent, period. They lowered the age to, I believe, to 16. The age of consent is 16, but there are nuances to it. So, for example, if two minors are engaging in a relationship, if they're both 16 or if they're 16 and 17, that is considered lawful. And I just don't, minors can't consent, period. Minors can't consent. And that's where we should be able to leave it, but we can't. It's so troubling to me.
And Megan, what do you think the reason is that they lowered that age of consent? Was there an ulterior motive?
Well, there was a case where one of the relatives of one of the lawmakers who was in charge of sponsoring this law apparently was caught in a situation where they would have benefited if the age got lowered. Now, it's not going to affect that particular case because it just went into effect just now. But I think that I have a suspicion that the motive behind lowering that age was to, to let people have more access and get in less trouble, basically. And I think that's disgusting. It's just protecting predators is wrong. Can we agree on that? It's not a partisan issue. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, or a, member of the Green Party. It doesn't matter what your politics are. We should all be able to agree that protecting predators is wrong. We should all be able to agree that minors can't consent. And we should all be for protecting children no matter what.
That's right.
Amen. And children, by the way, are not just toddlers. They're not just young kindergartners. Children, like you say, a 16-year-old, in my opinion, is a child.
I agree.
I don't think we need to limit our thinking to just little kids. There's so many, I've seen so many cases, and there was one recently in the news where a returned missionary tried to meet up with a 14-year-old girl and was arrested and taken away. And his excuse was, well, she seemed like she was older than that. I mean, she told me she was 18 and whatever. You know what? If it's even a question, if you're not, don't even touch that. Don't, stay the hell away from people, from kids who may look alluring or they may try to allure you. They may try to, it doesn't matter what our society tries to blame the girl in this case, or the female, which is absolutely ridiculous. Even if she is, she looks older and she seems sexy and she lures you in, that's no excuse. That's no excuse. And I'm tired of hearing these predators say that. Well, she seemed a lot older, or I thought she was 18. You know what? Whatever.
Well, Randy, in the scriptures, almost everybody who is a bad sexual behavior type person is a female.
Well, you know what? Even in general conference, I noticed they're talking about the lady who got pregnant out of wedlock. And they talked all about her. And you know what's crazy is they never mentioned the young member of the church that got her pregnant, that young priesthood holder. They never say a word about that. Let's protect him. It's all her. She probably showed her porn shoulders, or she probably was dressed provocatively. Yep. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I haven't seen once in the Bible where a man was stoned for adultery that I'm aware of.
Definitely not.
Right?
Yeah. I will say too that because of my conditioning in the church, when I got into a bad situation in college where there was a date R situation, I blamed myself for probably at least 20 years afterwards, because I absorbed the messaging that my mother reinforced, that I should not have been drinking. I should not have been alone with a boy. I should have been in my dorm room by midnight. If I had been doing all of those things, then I wouldn't have been in that situation. There was nothing about the young man's responsibility there. There was nothing about his actions or what he was doing. It was all about what I was doing. And so I did 100% blamed myself, even said to my therapist when I was in therapy, are there any other things that you need to talk about? And I was like, well, there was this incident in college, but it was totally my fault. She just sat there with her jaw open and was like, no, that was not your fault. And she was the first one that told me that, even though I had told my parents about it, I had told one of my bishops about it. She was the first one that said that to me. And when I ended up, pregnant out of wedlock at the age of 19, which I can't even say that phrase without laughing at how ridiculous it is. And I went, I told my parents, found out about it. the first thing that my mom said was, you need to go talk to the bishop. And I said, why do I have to tell the bishop? And she said, he's your judge in Israel. He's the one who will tell you what you need to do to repent.
And you said,
And
I
then-
didn't have sex in Israel.
Exactly. I've never even been to Israel. And then the second recommendation was that I read The Miracle of Forgiveness, which is a book by Spencer W. Kimball, who was a former prophet of the church, incredibly harmful on so many levels, but people consider it scripture because it was written by a prophet of God. And one of the things that he says in that book is that if you are the victim of assault, that you should die trying to defend your virtue. It would be better for you to die. And basically that if you have not bloodied your knuckles knocking on the door to get out of that situation, that you're complicit and you need to consider your own contributions to the effort. And so I thought to myself, well, I didn't bloody my knuckles. I'm still alive. I didn't fight tooth and nail. So I guess it is my fault.
Let me get this straight, Megan, because I used to respect you. But you were a 19-year-old adult and you had sex out of wedlock? I hope they made you wear a red letter S on your sweater for sinner, because 19-year-old having sex? What?
Well,
of course,
you
I'm
also
being
I know
completely
you're
facetious.
Yes, I know you are.
I
But
have
also,
nothing but respect for you.
thank you. Natasha Helfer mentions in the Architecture of Abuse podcast that sometimes when we're talking with young people about sin, we need to understand whether or not it was something that they thought through and did, or whether it was a trauma response. Because in my case, it was a trauma response. Because of the programming I received during my abuse as a child, I was literally incapable of saying no when a boy wanted to do something. And I was in complete freeze response. I literally could not move. And that's why I thought, okay, it's my fault because I didn't even try to fight back, you know? And so it just is one of those things where even as a 19-year-old, I really didn't have control over my ability to make a good choice in a situation like that because of my past abuse. So we really do need to stop the way that we victim blame and victim shame. And one of the best things that you can do if someone comes to you and shares with you some kind of an incident, the best thing you can do is listen, tell them that you believe them and you want to help them, and then actually go and get help. The first thing that needs to be done is to call the police.
Yeah, growing up in a farm community, and I, at the risk of being repetitive, I'll say it again. In high school, all these farmers' daughters would, not all of them, but several of them would disappear for 9 months. And basically, the relatives would send them up to Utah while their pregnancy showed, and they'd have a baby, and then they'd let them come back home. And the word spread quickly. Oh, so and so got pregnant out of wedlock.
Yeah.
Not once did they ever talk about who the dad was. Never. Didn't even come up. It's just her that's sent away in shame and put in the attic like she didn't count, and she should be, feel guilty for the rest of her life because of it.
Right. And I think that the reason for that is because the Mormon church is so focused on optics, on how things look and the appearance of things being perfect. And obviously a pregnant belly is going to throw a wrench into their perfect image. And so they don't want young women, getting pregnant because it is so obvious what has happened. It becomes obvious. And, for the boy or for the man, there's no outward sign that they did anything wrong. And so as Joe Schmo was pointing out in the chat, the typical punishment for anything of a moral, sexual nature for a young man is to stop taking the sacrament for a month. For a young woman, it's disfellowship, it's, shunning, it's basically ostracizing. I was too embarrassed to go to church because I was living in my parents' ward. My mom had gotten up in Relief Society testimony meeting and told everybody that I was pregnant. And I was way too embarrassed to go to that ward, with everybody knowing what had happened. Embarrassed to go to that ward, everybody knowing.
I feel so bad that.
Is there an echo?
Well, that was scary. I feel so bad that you had to pass through that, Megan. That breaks my heart. And so many young women do have to pass through that.
Yep.
It's all in the name of shaming.
Right. And then not only that, having to go through that, but they sent me to LDS social services and tried to get me to give up my baby because it was not done to have a single mother raising a child on her own. And I'm so grateful that I didn't listen to them. It was like my first act of rebellion.
Yeah. I happen to be one of those babies, by the way, that the mother had to give up in shame. And that ain't right. That ain't right. Yeah, I'm a bastard. I'll admit
it. Well, you're one of the best bastards I've ever known.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, I just want to encourage everybody to go and subscribe to the Architecture of Abuse podcast. Please listen to it. It is not easy listening, but it is so important. It will literally change your brain. It will change the way that you see things and think about things. And in my opinion, that's the only way, the best way to be educated about how to change things and protect children is for us to be aware of how bad the problem is. And I think a lot of people don't realize how bad it is. This podcast not only sheds a light on it, but it also is very reaffirming to anybody who has been through this. It's very reaffirming to anybody who's had a friend or a loved one go through it, because the therapists and the other experts that appear on the podcast to talk about it, call it what it is, say the correct words, let victims know that it's not their fault, it's a rampant problem, and there are things that we can do to mitigate the risk to future children being victimized.
And please be vigilant, keep your eyes open, and if you get that weird little feeling in your chest that seems kind of weird, don't hesitate to let it's better to be wrong and protect the child than to not take the chance and make another victim out of that child.
That's right. And if you're a parent or if you're in a position where you're caring for a child in any way, there's an excellent deep dive from a therapist telling you exactly what to do to know whether or not your child has possibly been victimized, and also what to do in order to protect them in the first place. It's such a great discussion, and I think it's a must listen for anybody who has children or who is caring for children.
Amen to that.
Did you want to take a couple calls?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to take a couple of calls. I was just going to say, sounds like the dog is calling.
Who let the dogs out?
I'm going to add this to the stage, but it doesn't need to be shown actually.
Yeah,
so the number, I'll put the number in the chat. It's 210-920-5223. And, anybody who wants to call in with a comment or especially a suggestion or anything that we can do that you think that we've missed out on, or just any way that you want to support this effort, we'd love to hear from you. We'll let you comment briefly and then say goodbye while we talk about what you said.
And one thing that might help Megan and the rest of us to spend more time on it is if you have more of a solution to the problem. We talked about this. There's a saying that for every 1,000 people hacking at the leaves of evil, there's one person hacking at the roots. And I'm hoping we're going to try to hack at the roots for this podcast. And we're going to try to get down to where the architecture needs to be fixed, right? If a house is built on a cracked foundation, at some point that building is going to be condemned and it needs to be rebuilt. And that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, thank you for
I
that.
like
Gina.
that, Jane. That was good. The hacking at the roots of evil. That was very good.
I think if it was Emerson that said it, I might be related, but he won't be coming on our podcast for some reason.
Yeah. So Georgiana has a good point here. I always try to engage in age-appropriate discussions with my children, starting around the age of 8, talking about body parts with the appropriate terms instead of using infantilized terms like pee-pee and wee-wee, things like that. Children who are 8 years old are old enough to be able to refer to their own body parts in the proper way, and they're old enough to understand that there are no-go zones. They're old enough to understand that if anybody makes them feel icky, they should be able to come and tell you. And one of the things I loved in this podcast was the therapist who was commenting said, you can ask a child, are there any tricky people in your life? And she said that's such a good way to refer to it, because people who are tricky, not to come out and ask an 8-year-old kid, have you ever been abused? But at just asking them if there are any tricky people in their lives, that's a really great way for kids to start having the conversation about, oh yeah, I don't like so-and-so because they always trick me to, say a bad word that I'm not supposed to say or whatever. I think the example that she gave in the podcast was something about, yeah, I really don't like the way that my uncle tickles me. Oh, well, where does he tickle you? Oh, he always tickles me on the feet, and I hate that. Great. You've had that conversation now. So the next time something happens, or if something happens that's a little worse than that, they're willing to come to you and talk to you about it. Listening to your kids about small things is a good way to ensure that they'll come talk to you about big things.
I love that. Tricky people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that, salt and pepper. Better than scary, because they may not want to be inclined to call a family member or close person scary. The other thing that I've talked about a lot on my channel is that I was listening to an interview with a predator one time, and they said that they would not try to prey on children who had a powerful person in their life. And the only thing they meant by powerful was somebody who could come up to him and look him in the eye and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, shake their hand and say, I'm John's dad. And I just wanted to introduce myself and for you to know that I'm bringing my son and, trusting him with you. They said that person would victimize someone else. The kid who gets dropped off and the parent never comes up to introduce. The kid who they don't even know where the parents are. They never seen the parents, never been introduced. So I tried really hard, and still do, to make sure that if my child is going to an activity, I go introduce myself to the adults. I give them my phone number. I make sure they know how to contact me. I look them in the eye. I try to make an assessment about, are they being straight with me about everything they're telling me? And then I'm really careful to listen to my kids' experiences after the fact and say, how was that? Was there anything that you didn't like about it? What did you like about it? I want to listen to them. I want to listen to the way my kids talk about the adults that they interact with as well.
It baffles me. It makes me crazy to think how many parents are so trusting. I was a massage therapist for years and years. It was always just a second income for me because I ran a very large day spa. And there were probably at least 3 occasions where a mother would book an appointment for her child, and I remember particularly one was 12 years old, and she came in, the mother and daughter, and I guided them to the room, and the mother says, I don't need to go in. I said, yes, I can't, I'm not going to massage your daughter if you're not in there.
Right.
And she said she's had many massages. She was a little spokesmodel for products. She did commercials. And I said, absolutely not. I said, if you don't come in, I can't massage you. I'll be happy to get one of the girls that we have to massage her, and they'll have to leave the door open. But this mother was willing to send her daughter in with a guy that looks like me, a bad guy, mafia looking. Are you kidding me? And
Yeah.
she didn't think a thing about it. And there were 3 occasions where I had to tell parents, you've got to come and sit in. Just otherwise it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and as Mormons, unfortunately, we are way too trusting of other Mormons. Just because we know that brother so and so has a temple recommend, doesn't mean that we can let our kids sleep over at their house. It's just we just can't guarantee that just because someone has a recommend that they're a good person. I've known plenty of bad people, criminals, and other yucky people who have had temple recommends.
Am I the only one hearing that?
No, we're
Ring?
getting a call here. Oh shoot, I'm too late. I was trying to pick it up and I was too late. Go ahead and try again, Kirsten. Kirsten is trying to call in and make a comment and I was too late to pick it up.
Did it go to voicemail or
I don't think it has a voicemail. It's just a Google number, so
sometimes it said
It was
the
a
mail.
very pleasant sound.
yeah, it's
Yes.
Who's calling, please?
Bum, 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 bum.
So yeah,
Yep.
probably you can answer it, and does it ask who's calling first? But we would probably hear that, huh?
It does say who's calling, but I just didn't get to it soon enough because I didn't hear it soon enough.
It's because you had too good of a thought that you had to get out.
I was talking, so I wasn't listening.
That's right. And I'll just say a commercial. Britty the Apostate, Latter Daily Digest interviews content creators. And if you want to contact us, be interviewed, we will interview you. Contact Randy or I.
Or me. Contact any one of us. Hi, Kirsten. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Kirsten and I had a lovely morning. We just filmed another episode of Family Home Evening, which is going to air tomorrow night.
Oh,
Heck
yay.
Yeah, it was great.
I was just Oh yeah, I'm so excited. So I'm on my run, but I wanted to just share, since you said solutions, was one thing I have made a really big point of with my family is to show good behavior or things they could do without bringing it up. So there's been times where I've been at dinner, with my husband and our family, and I've said, you know what, I really don't like how so-and-so gave me a hug. I think I'm going to ask them not to hug me, or you know what, maybe they won't come over anymore. And that's made it a little bit easier for my kids to say to me, I don't like spending time with that person, or I don't like going to that club because of so-and-so, And so I think just showing really good behavior, making it normal to say, I don't like that, makes it a little bit easier to have those hard conversations if something were to come up.
Yeah. Having boundaries and then example of boundaries for your kids? That's crazy.
That is crazy for Mormon girls.
It really is to have boundaries and to be able to express that in a healthy way. And one of the things that I had to tell my kids at one point was, you don't have to give so-and-so a hug every time they ask for it if you don't want to. And so I started modeling for my kids, and I do the same thing with my grandkids. Is it okay if I give you a hug? Or is it okay if I give you a kiss? I don't ever want them to feel obligated to hug me or kiss me. And there have been many, many times when I've said to my grandson, can I give you a hug? And he'll go, not right now. And I'll say, okay.
I love that. Yeah. What I really want to normalize, because I didn't get this, is that it's okay to say, I don't like being around so-and-so. They make me feel weird. Or I don't like spending time with so-and-so because I had a bad experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I like that.
I really want my kids to see that that's okay. I had a child, one of my kids, that did not enjoy going to a club because the adult made them uncomfortable. And so we stopped going. End of story. And I don't know if anything happened or what had happened, but I honored my child's request to not go because they did not enjoy that adult.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, thank you for that suggestion. I appreciate it. Thanks, Kirsten.
Bye.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Thanks, Kirsten. Can the callers hear us?
Yes, I think so. Or maybe she
Oh,
could
okay.
hear you because she also had the YouTube going at the same time. She probably
Well,
had headphones on.
I didn't say anything, but I was just wondering, had I said something, would she be able to hear?
Yeah, so if the caller is wearing headphones and they're listening to the show, they'll be able to hear us still. If they don't have headphones on and the show is going, we're going to get a big echo. So it's always a little tricky technically.
And you know what we've never brought up, even though it's a mega famous case, is Michael Jackson and his Neverland Ranch, and how because Michael Jackson was famous, parents wouldn't hesitate to let their kids stay the night.
Yeah.
I don't know if Michael Jackson was a predator or not. I like to think he wasn't, but all the evidence kind of leads to the fact that, yeah, he probably was. But it was poor. It was a poor decision on the parents' part and a poor decision on his part to even put himself in that position. Had he not done that, he would have never had a tarnished reputation.
Yeah.
But you know,
and Michael Jackson wasn't Mormon at the time, but I'll bet you he is now.
Oh yeah.
Now that he's in
Did
heaven.
you baptism for the dead, Gene?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Got you. Well, what I was going to say is there was a very famous case that recently where, and I can't remember the name of the victim, so I'm not going to mention the name of the predator, but unfortunately a vulnerable person was killed. And one of the things that the psychologists have said is that they had this sort of, they didn't call it a disorder, but it's just an identification that they relate more to children than they do to adults. And I think that Michael Jackson probably had that. It doesn't mean, as you're saying, Randy, that he was a predator, but it's a red flag to me. You know, it's not okay for an adult man to be in the same bed with young boys that are not their own children. You know, let's put it that way.
Right.
So I just, I think it's a red flag when there's somebody who identifies more with children than they do with adults. And it's something to be aware of and to watch for, that it is an actual identification.
Good point.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody for your support and your kindness. Thank you for everything that people have shared in the chat, your experiences, as well as your suggestions. And I just want to say, if you haven't done it already, please go and subscribe to Architecture of Abuse. Go leave them a review on your favorite podcast platform, because that's one of the best ways to support their podcast. And we've got Joe Schmo in the house. Howdy, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi there.
Ta-da.
Hi, Joe
Randy.
Schmo.
Hi, Gene.
Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too. I'm former LDS also. And I have a long story that I'm not going to go through because Megan said keep it brief. It's not a brief story. Yes, right. That's funny, because when I went to the Kerrville ward a couple of weeks ago, it was fast and testimony meeting.
Yeah.
So,
and it wasn't fast.
I'm not going to make any comments, because they were so kind, and they were so accommodating, and they were so gracious. I mean, lots of good people in that ward. And that leads to lots of other questions, right? About the church and about what ward members believe, what Mormons believe, like everyday boots on the ground Mormons. Anyway, hi.
Hi. Good to see you.
So I'm bringing in positive affirmations. Like I just
good.
want to, I want to say, like, I think that this type of discussion is hacking at the roots. I really do. And occasionally you have to chop off some limbs with some, foliage to get to the roots. And we have conversations like that, but this is a deep conversation that I feel is very productive at hacking at the roots. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Randy.
you.
Thank you, Gene. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And sometimes we can't see the roots. And I think that's been part of the issue with the Mormon church is that, you know, a lot of ex-Mormons, and no disrespect to anybody who's in the space calling things out, because everybody's voice is needed and important. But a lot of times we talk so much about the symptoms of Mormonism. We talk about, you know, the Lori Vallows and the other sensational cases, but we don't talk about how they got there. We don't talk about the soup that they swam in, so to speak. We don't talk about, you know, all of the underlying things in Mormonism that cause people to do these terrible things. And I just will come all the way back to it over and over again, that Joseph Smith meets the criteria for a predator. And when you have someone like that founding an organization, everything else is going to be informed by that type of behavior.
Right.
And Joe, we would
Randy.
love to hear your story sometime. You know, like
I would love to tell you my story. Yeah, I left the church when I was 19, and I was supposed to go on my mission. And there were just some things about Mormon doctrine that I couldn't swallow. Like, I said them out of my mouth, like based on faith, that I've been raised in this church almost my entire life. My parents joined when I was like 2 years old. So I believed this my entire life. And then I stand up in front of people to deliver my talk when I was supposed to leave on my mission. And I said it out of my mouth, and my heart said, that's not true. That's not right.
Wow.
Amazing.
The burning in your bosom wasn't a good
right.
burning. Huh?
Yes.
We'd be happy to do a full episode on you on Latter Daily Digest, and if Megan wants to co-brand it, we can do a collab.
Absolutely, that'd be awesome.
I'm happy to join. Yeah, I'm happy to join. Would love to.
That's good to know.
Righty.
Well, we sure appreciate your kind comments, Joe.
And I appreciate your feedback on all of this. It's such a tangled web, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Sure is.
It feels like a big, overwhelming problem, but I'm so glad that Architecture of Abuse is out there. I think they've done such an excellent job. It's so professionally produced that I don't think that there's a better resource for uncovering this problem. And I'm really excited to keep getting the word out so that more people, hear about it.
That's right. So Thundersnow had a great comment earlier, and this happened in Idaho, I believe, where the guy made up these stories, and it's a Mormon family, and he was, we'll say, like Joseph Smith, got really into being nice to the family, and they said the manipulation included convincing Jan, the daughter, that she was half alien, had been chosen to procreate with him to save her species. This alien mission was relayed through audio recordings played in his RV. So yeah, the documentary Abducted in Plain Sight.
Wow. Yeah.
That's why
wrap up.
Yeah. Right. That's why discussions like this are so crucial, because we're reaching people who are like ground level, just like everyday people, and they need to know that this wackiness exists. Like our brains tend to tune these stories out when we hear them from other areas, like from cognitive dissonance. We like tune stuff out that just sounds too crazy to believe.
And wouldn't you know it happened?
I had an inspiration that's very similar, only I felt like I was called to sleep with Heidi Klum as a therapy. And I don't know, my sweetheart, my fiance, didn't seem to think that was a legitimate feeling. But
that did not come from the Lord, Randy. I mean, how do I know? Who am I to judge somebody's religious beliefs?
Yeah, you don't know my
That's right.
therapy
I don't.
needs.
I'm sorry. You're right. I'm not a licensed counselor, so who am I? Miss Woozy had a similar calling regarding Keanu Reeves, they say. All right. Thanks, Joe. We're going to take this other call over here.
All right. Sounds good.
Take
I'll
care.
catch y'all later.
All right.
Bye,
Call
Joe.
from.
Take care.
Hello, caller. Are you there?
Yes, this is Songs of Our Own.
Hey, Songs, how are you?
Hey, Songs.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. What have you got to say to us this afternoon?
I was just going to comment on the comment that you have on the line that I put up. So when you were talking about the Boy Scouts, I had watched the documentaries Leave No Trace and Scouts Honor. And both I found interesting because both acknowledge what you were saying, that the Scouts have known forever that there have been people attracted to being involved with the Boy Scouts who were pedophiles of some sort. That in fact, and I was listening while I was driving, so I didn't catch if you mentioned the fact that they had a list.
They did,
list of people they suspected of this type of behavior. And when you think about that, Scouts started in what, when you said 1913, I'm sure, or 1920.
Yeah.
So, and it's been going on for over 100 years that they've known about these secret lists of people that they thought were pedophiles. And you think about, one of the documentaries goes heavily into how the Mormon Church was involved with the Scouts since nearly the beginning of it, or at least since 1924, I think it was when the church got involved, something like that.
Yeah.
So, but the point I'm making is, as a mom of a boy who was in Boy Scouts at that age, to have not known that all those years the church had to have known about those lists, right?
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you make the assumption, if it's been around for over 100 years, the people involved in scouting in the church, the adults, would have known that there were these lists of suspected.
Of course.
I don't know. I just find it troubling, but I do think everybody who gets a chance should watch Scouts Honor and Leave No Trace. And then there was something else you all mentioned when Joe was there, the story about there's, I think, 3 documentaries about Jan Broberg, including like one where they just kind of, I guess it's a recreation of the story with Colin Hanks playing the predator in that, but there's at least 3 documentaries about it, and most of them they interview her about how she was abducted and how the offender abused her dad and her mom as well. So it's just a whole horrific story around that.
Yeah.
But just, as church members, we don't really have the greatest history in, LDS or not, handling that.
We have a terrible track record in the LDS Church of not protecting children. That's the bottom line of it. And the thing is, that's hard for me, is that when my oldest son was joining Cub Scouts, I didn't know about this scandal that was happening, and or that had happened, that they had a history of this. And it's not something they're ever going to tell you. And it's not something that the missionaries are ever going to say, like, come and join us at church. By the way, we have a history of predatory behavior in our church, so be careful with your kids. Like, they're never going to say that. But I think that's what I'm going to say from now on. Like, every time I see missionaries, and they still come around my door because they do want my daughter to come back to church. I think what I want to say to them is, I'll come back to church when you guys have mandated reporting for every person who's involved with children.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's so important because, the more we know, I wouldn't have known about the Scouts until I watched these documentaries.
Right.
So, watch the documentaries, report. It seems to me, and you all can tell me if I'm wrong, that somewhere in Utah they had some level of background checks for people working with children. Do you all know about that? Was that something?
I haven't heard about anybody in the church doing background checks for anybody working with children, but I will tell you that every other professional organization that I've ever been involved with, there's a background check if you're working with children, bottom line, period. And it's necessary.
And mandated reporting.
Yeah, and mandated reporting too. Yeah. Thanks so much for calling in, Songs.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
It's always good to hear from you.
You guys have a great afternoon. Thanks for a great show.
Yeah, thank you.
This business goes way back. Santa Claus kept a list of people who are naughty and nice.
That's right.
And those naughty lists just keep on propagating.
Salt and pepper. I actually like this even better. I'll come back to church when there is 0 poop in the brownies. Yeah. And that's why I say it's not going to happen because, they cannot fix all of these problems while they're still continuing to deny that they're happening. And I do think that at the top leadership level, I don't think that they have a really good idea of how rampant this is. I mean, I think they know to a certain degree because they are getting sued left and right. They are paying out left and right. but I don't think that their cognitive dissonance will allow them to consider the thought, if they have 100 people reporting, there are probably 1,000 more who don't.
And the other thing I just thought of, Megan, the church says, oh, we have 17.5 million members. Well, however many they have based on that might be small. But if there's only 4 million that are actually attending church, then whatever their percentage is up multiplied by 4 times.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point, Gene. They're looking at the statistics of how many abusers they have, and they're diluting it down to say, well, out of 17 million members, if we only have, 100,000 abusers, then that's a pretty good statistic. Well, it's a lot worse if you consider the fact that only 4.5 million are actually active.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm glad to hear, Shelley, that in Australia they're doing background checks as well. They should. I also want to take this moment to do a short commercial. For those of you who are so kind to watch this show, we appreciate you so much. And if you're loving it, and so many of you have indicated that you are, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. There's 3 channels that you're welcome to subscribe to. Gene's channel, Latter Daily Digest, is the first one you see. Megan's channel, the second one, and my channel is the third one. Whatever you subscribe to, all of them would be the best. But we are so appreciative of you watching. So don't forget to hit that like, because that helps us out a lot so we can continue our superhero activities.
That's right. And also, I'm going to give another shout out to the Architecture of Abuse podcast. If you, if your finger is too fatigued to subscribe to 3 channels, go ahead and use that one for Architecture of Abuse. And also, I'm going to say, these episodes are shareable. And if you know somebody who needs this information, please share the episode. So just me, I want to clarify, because we're being a little bit facetious here. There was a famous object lesson that I was given as a youth, and I know many other people received the same object lesson, where the teacher would bring in brownies and, ask us if we all wanted a brownie. And of course we said yes, but then she said, now I just have to tell you, there's a little bit of poop in the brownies, just a little bit though. It's only a little bit. And she was using that as an object lesson to tell us that we shouldn't be watching rated R movies or, swearing or doing any of those things, because, rated R movies might be mostly good, but there's like there's that one little scene that's bad. And that's like eating brownies with poop in them. So it's not.
And by the way, when you're here at the Watts house, if someone mentions that there's shit in the brownies, that means marijuana. It's not the poop. So
for legal
just letting you know,
that was a joke.
That's right.
Ish. Yeah, ish.
For platform purposes, that was a joke. Oh, goodness. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for letting us talk about this topic. Thanks for your support, both of us and of reform and protecting children. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you all.
There you go. We could celebrate. Architecture of Abuse hit 500 subscribers.
Woohoo! And we made it happen.
That's right. When I first looked a month ago, it had like 431 or something like that. And I couldn't believe it. And so I was happy to be able to go to Sunstone and hear a presentation from Alyssa Grenfell, who wrote this book, in case anybody wants to buy it.
Mormon Church, yep.
And what's his name? The lawyer was
Tim Kosnoff.
Tim Kosnoff was there, and they talked about setting up the architecture abuse or interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, the one thing that he said that really knocked me out, as far as like, it's a thing that I knew, but I've never actually heard anybody say it out loud. And for those who don't know, Tim Kosnoff is not LDS. He's never been LDS, but he has spent the last over 40 years representing victims of the LDS church and others. But when somebody asked him, what are the things that we can do? And he listed off all the things that we've been talking about. And then he said, but you know what? the church isn't going to do those things because they don't care. And this is from somebody who's been dealing with the church for 40 years. He's been on the other side of the negotiation table from the church's attorneys. And when those attorneys speak, they speak for their client. Their client is the church, and the church does not care. They don't care enough about your children to do the things they could do to protect them. So why in the fuck would you let them go there? Sorry, I had to put an F-bomb in because this makes me really angry.
But you woke me up.
You say it well, Megan.
Thank you.
It's very, very apropos. It just sounds good when you say it for some reason, because it just drives it home.
And it is really sad that our family and friends that are still going to the church, and we want them to have a good experience, and we do want the church to be healthier and happier experience for our relatives. I mean, healthier and safer for our relatives. But until they can open up their eyes and ears to the truth, they'll be hard pressed to get changes going. And so that's what we need. We need people to share the information, people to listen. And, anything against the church is not anti-Mormon. It's just history. It's just news. It's just science. And once they can figure it out, they can start thinking for themselves and make real change happen. You be the change.
And for anybody who wants to say that all of this is anti-Mormon, it's not anti-Mormon. It's pro-protecting children, period.
Exactly. Now for our shows from here on Sunday, probably will stay at this time. My fellow broadcasting superheroes.
It works for me.
Yeah, it works for me as well. So hopefully we'll be able to keep this time and tell your friends. Bring a friend with you next time.
That's right.
Get some popcorn, and what is it? Alyssa Grenfell says, double up on the bean juice and pop some popcorn and make this a party, because that's
right.
exactly what it is. Although we do, touch on sensitive subjects, we really enjoy doing this and hopefully
That's right.
making a little bit of difference.
And I want to give a shout out to the other Mormon news channels or ex-Mormon news channels, however you want to figure what that is. There's Mormon News Roundup. There's the Mormon Newscast. And what is Megan Hayes's channel?
Uncomfortable.
Unmentionable. No.
Unquotable.
Unquotable.
Generally
unquotable.
Generally unquotable. Yes. Every day she has some kernels of wisdom. And I remember when she first started, she would read the news and just sort of like do an eyebrow or a little bit, but she's really getting into some commentary and she's putting out such great content right now. Everybody should check out her show as well.
Yes, please do.
Her and Alyssa are two of my favorites. Well, of course, my two favorites are beside me here. But we appreciate all of those that are putting out these same messages. We're all on the same team, guys. And,
that's right. Rebecca with Mormonish. She appears on the Mormon Newscast with Bill Reel and Radio Free Mormon, and they do a great job.
Yep. And we appreciate all the voices who are out here in the space calling out the MFMC, because God knows they're not going to do it themselves.
There you go. So thanks everybody for watching. Have a great rest of 2025 and be the change. And let's get moving on some activism. Activism towards.
And keep the Sabbath day holy. Just kidding.
Holy shit. Right.
Enjoy your second Saturday, everybody. Take care.
Right. Bye-bye.